For 20 years, I have authored a series. People talk about my games and the wonderful things they did. Yet still I remain strangely vague about the future. I often discuss my own involvement with the first games, and the pride I felt when I burned the CDs that would contain them. Some people believe the series died after 5, but the truth is, it did not. You are the only ones I can confide in, my friends, so I am asking you to listen to this podcast. There are things we must discuss about my games.
Around the world and across the ages, this is the Cavern Today's Myst 20th Anniversary Special, our podcast for September 2013. On September 24th, 1993, a game called Myst was released for Mac OS computers and forever changed the way we thought about gaming. Its success earned it the title of best-selling PC game for 9 solid years and helped to push the CD-ROM format into the forefront. Now, 20 years later, this venerable series is still recognized as one of the trailblazers of the adventure game genre, continuing to inspire gamers and developers alike even today. To celebrate 2 decades of Myst, we'll be bringing you a special retrospective TCT Talk, musical pieces by Delanor and Jeff Wise, and much more. But first, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Dalken Starbyne, who will be giving us the news for this podcast.
Shura, this is Dalken Starbyne for the Cavern Today, bringing you your TCT News Report. In Cavern News, the Guild of Writers has made several new locations available in the Nexus via a separate shard of the lattice called Gen. The locations made available via this shard are one Garden Age called Trebivdil and 2 Denis locations, Vothal Gallery and Fenir House. Trebivdil, which means place of everything, was written by guild member Lontov, who offers this description. On a peaceful world, bounded by the calm sea, lie stark, barren cubes of sandstone. In these cubes reside single or grouped essences of places and ideas, a museum of icons. The Vothal Gallery restoration was completed by guild member Rusty. Not much is known about this gallery. It is located on a private island in Denis and was the property of the original Guild of Writers. While its original purpose remains unknown, at the time of the fall it was a showcase of ages for all citizens of Denis to visit. Finally, the Fenir House, a Denis apartment restored by guild member Tweak, seems to have been the home of a Denis archivist named Fenir and his family during the fall. While Fenir's family managed to escape to their family age, Fenir himself succumbed to the plague and perished. His remains can be witnessed here, as well as the inactive book to the family age. For more information on these ages and the Gen Shard, visit the Guild of Writers website at www.guildofwriters.org. In other Cavern news, on August 4th, 2013, a music festival was held in Curel to raise CavCon awareness. Over 100 explorers came throughout the day to show their support and to enjoy the music of their fellow explorers. It was one of the largest explorer outpourings the Cavern has seen in a few years. In Myst series news, Cyan Worlds recently rebranded themselves as Cyan Inc., their original name, and redesigned their website and logo, apparently in anticipation of an upcoming event. And while Cyan has confirmed they are exploring the possibility of bringing a remake of Real Myst to PCs and Macs, whether or not there is something else in their pipeline remains to be seen. We wish them the best of luck and eagerly anticipate any future announcements. For the Cavern Today, this is Dalken Starbyne, signing off. Happy anniversary!
Sure all, this is Morris, and I'm here to present a new piece from one of the Cavern Today's very first musical contributors back in 2005, Dylan. In July, I had the opportunity to attend Dunny-Palooza and was pleasantly surprised to find that Dylan had a musical set. While I was very happy to hear all of this new music from our old collaborator, one of his tracks in particular stood out to me, a piece called Stream of Unconsciousness. I got in touch with Dylan after Dunny-Palooza, and he was more than happy to let us feature the piece in our podcast. So, without further ado, I am pleased to present Dylan's Stream of Unconsciousness. Welcome to another TCT Talk, our roundtable chatterbox for the goings-on in the Cavern community. I'm Morris, and with me are Wing. Moag.
Hello, good to see you all.
And Esto.
Shora Agabatori.
And our first point for the day is, of course, the amazing fact that it is the 20th anniversary of Myst series. 20 years since the original game came out, and man, it's been a good 20 years, hasn't it?
On and off, actually, but yeah, on the whole, I would say so.
It certainly had its moments, yeah.
It's been quite a ride.
So I wanted to just go around to each of us, and I wanted each of us to talk about what we thought were some of the things that originally really intrigued us and drew us in to the original Myst series, and just the Myst universe in general, and what some of our fondest memories from the Myst series are. And who wants to start?
I might as well. I think I first ran into Myst as I was just a young child. My parents had this like family. It was like a Windows 95 machine, nothing special. But among the various CD games we had for it, Carmen Sandiego, stuff like that, we had a copy of Myst, and it utterly baffled me as a child. It was just like, what is this strange game? I'm just kind of plopped into this world with no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just kind of click around and it was like, oh, this is kind of neat, but what am I doing? And eventually, because we actually had one of the original versions, which had come with a journal that you were supposed to write down solutions in. And my big brother had actually gone through and written down some of the solutions. I
wish I still had my journal.
I left mine behind when I moved. I think it's still at my parents' house. But no, I'd always I'd go right, like, straight to Stone Ship, and I'd just plow through it. I really didn't care about it anymore. I was just like, I need to figure out, like, beat this game, because, that's what you do with the game. You beat it, right? So I just plow through as much as I could. So I know by heart how to beat Stone Ship, and that's about it. Everything else I just need to check or go through and actually pay attention. But I can just plow right through Stone Ship. And it wasn't until much later, when I actually cared enough, that I got into Riven. We had a copy of Riven as well, the old 5-disc set that came with a demo of Journeyman Project 3.
Oh, yeah.
Journeyman 3 was fantastic, but that's not
our purview. No.
We're not here to talk about that. Yeah. I love that game.
I loved Riven because I'd gotten to the age where I was able to start appreciating the story a bit more. So I started up Riven, and it was so much more involved because, first off, it opened, there's this guy, and he tells you that this is what's happening, and you need to go in here, and you need to trap this guy, and then you need to call me. Here's a book, and here's a journal, go. And then I had some context for the story that was happening. Yes. So I was a lot more involved with that, and I just loved going through the islands and seeing all the little details, noticing that the townspeople would sound the alarm and run away from me, or that, all the strange creatures that would just kind of flutter by. And it was, for a kid in the early 90s, when the most involved graphics were, at least for me, because I didn't actually have a Super Nintendo growing up. I was a generation behind. It was big, blocky 8-bit sprites for me. And then to see these beautiful, they were pre-rendered, sure, but just to see these beautiful landscapes just spread out before me that I could look around and play with. It was enrapturing. It was, pardon the pun, but mystifying. It was exciting.
It was like nothing else out there.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's funny, I mean, when you go back and think about Riven, and like when it came out at the time, it is crazy how ridiculously involved it is. Like, for a game that came out at that, I mean, you're absolutely right about that. Like, that's insane.
It was a developer's nightmare.
That's about where my experience with Myst stopped for a long time. I didn't play 3, I didn't play Exile or 4, and I didn't play 5 until after I had picked up a copy of Uru Complete Chronicles at Barnes & Noble somewhere. And I looked into it because I'd gotten the edition that was, Complete Chronicles, because this was after they had scrapped the online function of it.
Sure.
But, it came with the strategy guide, and I was like, wow, all of this is so exciting. All of this backstory. You get to go to the cavern. I was so excited, and I looked, and I found out that it was supposed to be an online thing, and I started looking, and I remember finding out about Demolishard.
Yes.
I got an invite. I managed to get myself an invite to Demolisher, but I never managed to get onto it because the computer I owned was not good enough to run Uru. I would have had to borrow my older brother's, and that just was not an option. So that's effectively where my nostalgia for the series ended. Since then, I have played 5 all the way through, all the endings, and I have yet to play 4 or Exile.
Oh my god.
I played it, but I never finished it.
Yeah.
And probably never will.
So that's my side of the story. That's my experience with the 20 years. I missed quite a bit, and I was kind of late to the party. But I wouldn't say that it was bad to me at all. I'd say it's been quite the building block of my gamer career.
Sure.
I'll bite.
Yep.
Back in 1993, I was 3 years old, and my neighbor, who was 40 years my senior, his name was Bob Shepard. He had come over, and he absolutely wanted to show me this game. Now, keep in mind, I was 3 years old, and yet I remember that. So maybe that's an indicator of how much of an impact it made on me at the time.
Yeah.
But I remember just kind of throwing myself into Myst, and very much like how Wayne said, I was like, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? And I didn't really get it, but I played it a lot. I just playing around with things and exploring it, even though I didn't understand what I was doing, trying to figure it out. And I think it planted a seed in my mind or something that just grew. And by the time I finally beat Myst on my own when I was in 5th grade, I remember at the time it was some form of obsession by that point, because I would carry this notebook around with me. I also had one of those Myst journals, but I did not write in it because in my mind I wanted to keep that as pristine as possible.
You poor bastard.
So, yeah. So I instead created my own. Had this. I'd say I went through reams of paper in creating my own set of notes where I would draw out the maps of each of the ages and write down interesting tidbits that I'd find in various ages, or something about the what did they call them, the black ships referenced in the mechanical age, and how I had found the flag in Sirius's room in Stone Ship, and was starting to slowly piece all of these bits together and realize what was happening behind the scenes.
Sure.
And sometime I realized, like, it had already been an obsession of mine by then, but I was actually starting to get a handle on it, and I finally beat it. And I'd say that's probably that whole development is probably it is a foundation of who I am today. It's just been around with me for 21 years, I guess. Well, no, 20 years. It's only been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm just
getting ahead of yourself.
Getting ahead of myself. Sometimes I forget what year it is. Anyways, I'd say that's probably it. No, I mean, I played Riven. I had a cousin who would come over during the summer, and we would try and figure out Myst or Riven. I watched him play through Riven. I didn't actually get to play through Riven until many years later. I can't remember what year it was. But I remember playing through 3, 4, and I remember when 5 came out, I did not want to play it. I specifically refused to buy that game because I did not want it to end. It was called The End of Ages, and I knew that not only was it not in the past like all of the other games, but that Atreus was old and senile, and I didn't want to see him like that. Like, I remember feeling like I can't do this. I'm not ready for this. And it was around that time. Actually, I guess it was a few years before. I know I'm skipping around a bit, but this is just how it's returning to me. When I had first heard about Uru, I tried to be a part of that, and I heard that it had flopped, and I was kind of crushed. I was like, man, this is what I kind of feel like I've been living for this. I mean, I can't remember how old I was at the time. I guess I was like 10 or 11. And thinking, well, this is the place that I've been hearing about for my whole life, and this
it's
was
all
my
been
one
building up
chance
to this.
go there. Yeah, it's all been coming to this, and now my chance to go there is gone. And then I didn't hear anything about the Intil Uru for a while. I guess it was about 2005 when I heard about the Cavern Today, ironically. And I started following everything. I was like, this is great. It's still going. There are other people like me. I'm not the only one who's obsessed with this thing. And I listened to every single podcast. I read through the archiver. I fumbled around the DRC webpage. I even watched the crappy little DRC hosted webcam that they had on their website.
I remember that, yeah.
I just couldn't. I did everything I could to get as much as I could to figure out what was going on, even though I couldn't be a part of it. And then when GameTap rolled around, I remember I wanted to do it, but I couldn't at the time. Like, one, my computer couldn't run it, and I didn't have the financial means to make it so. And so I latched on to, again, everything that I could, mostly through the Cavern Today or various other. I was part of the forums. I tried to keep up as best I could. I had friends who went to the Cavern, and they'd tell me these stories about the places that they'd gone, or a puzzle they were trying to figure out, or just whatever was happening in the Cavern at the time. And I wanted to be a part of that so much.
Yeah.
And then the Cavern closed again, and I was crushed. I was absolutely devastated because here it had come a second time, and I wasn't able to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of forgot about it. I forgot about Uru. I went back to playing single-player Myst games, and I think I was a sophomore in college, I guess. No, I might have been I was a junior. I was a junior at that point. And I heard that the Cavern was reopening, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, you are the Myst Ubermensch.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a term for that in Denis.
There must be, right? Yeah.
I think it's called.
The called, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I would like to share my story. If
Please.
Yeah, okay. So I think I was in the same position as Wing, which is that I remember it was the first Windows, or I guess Microsoft, whatever you want to call it, powered computer that my household ever got back in the mid-90s. And I had this computer for a few years even. And I was obviously too young to use it for a while, but, I grew up, maybe it was 96, 97, so I was either 6 or 7. Might have been 7 or 8. But the point is, one day I'm flipping through, and this Myst disc had been sitting in. It was an old Gateway 95, Gateway 2000 is what they used to call them.
Yeah, it came in the
big beige boxes.
Came with the cow box, didn't it?
Oh yeah, came with cow box. Came with the whole cow style booklet of like CDs that came with the computer, and one of the CDs that came with the computer was a Myst disc that just sat there. In the case, and I just always brush past it. I'm like, hey, that rocket looks kind of cool, but it looks dumb. Hey, it's by Broderbund, who does the Carmen Sandiego games that I know of. But other than that, I didn't really make, And then one day, I think it was one of my grandparents who actually said, I heard that's not bad. You should try it out sometime. And again, I was 6 or 7, so I was like, I guess, I remember my immediate reaction. And everybody's going to hate me. All the listeners are going to hate me. My immediate reaction was I started it up and walked around the world and was like, this is so dumb. You touch a book and you go in. What is this? This is stupid. So like,
this is for nerds.
So I uninstalled it and then like never looked at it again. Well, didn't never look at it again, obviously. But it was like another year or half a year before I tried it out again, I think so. And he said, no, I heard that's pretty good. You should. So I did, and I guess I just sort of kept going, and it kept intriguing me. And I was like, this is pretty cool.
So that time it clicked.
That time it clicked for whatever reason. I sort of got lost in it a little bit. I got lost in the world. I figured out that my teacher at the time, third grade teacher, played Myst.
Mm-hmm.
So I started talking to her about it. This is real. This really happened.
Oh boy.
I was talking to my own teacher about Myst. No, it's just funny. And I actually was stuck. I remember being stuck on Slentic because that damn Maze Runner puzzles. Could not figure it out.
Yes.
I think I brute forced it the first time I did that. That was painful.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
I eventually asked my teacher to tell me the answer.
Listen for the sounds. Yeah.
So that's how I got literally northwest, south.
Oh, yeah.
She wrote it out for me. So that happened, and I got through, and I thought that was it until my babysitter told me, "Did you know that there's a sequel?" And I went, "What?" Sure enough, it ended up underneath the Christmas tree in, I guess, 1998 or 9.
Oh, very good.
I played all the way through, and by then I was just like, this is the greatest thing, obviously.
You managed to play all the way through Riven?
No, I didn't manage to play all the way through Riven.
I was gonna say.
No. I mean, I needed a help book. Because I was like, this is the coolest thing ever, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I needed the help book, and I used it. I tried not to use it, but ultimately did out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And then that was great. The ending felt good. It felt like a solid ending to the series. I was like, that's great. So it wasn't until like 3 or 4 years later, I moved to my other house. I was already moved. Like, my whole life was different at this point. New school, different people. And I just was happening to, like, there was a magazine sitting on the table, and I flipped through. It was like a Best Buy magazine, whatever the electronics dealer was at the time. And I saw a little listing, and it said Myst 3 Exile, and I went, what? What? This was happening and nobody told me? What?
Yeah.
So, of course, I rushed out to the store, the first chance I got, and grabbed it. And that time, I was actually developed enough that I didn't need a help guide. I actually got myself all the way through the game. It was so fun. For some reason, what I did that time is I got friends involved, and they would all sit around the table, and we'd all try to solve puzzles together. And this must have been, like, Cyan must have seen this. This must have been what the inspiration for making Uru an MMO was.
Yeah.
Because that experience is cool. Hey, you should try this. Oh, that didn't work. Like, everybody together, for some reason, gives that, like, a real energy. And, oh, man, Myst 3 is great. And seriously, as for one of my favorite memories of the series, I love the whole series, but, I mean, that Amateria roller coaster thing, whew.
That was the icing on the cake.
That's hard to beat that moment. That's like one of the most memorable moments in the series, I gotta say. And you know the story from there. By that point, I was just sort of on the series. It was just sort of the thing I do at that point. So, Uru came out and I played it, but I couldn't do live because I didn't have the connection. So when they actually canceled it and made the content DLC, I was actually happy because I wasn't going to be able to access it anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
You've little connection.
Myst 4 comes out, I get it. Myst 5 comes out, I get it. No further stories there. Cavern comes back, obviously I'm there. And, basically it's just, you sort of fill in the blanks up to right now. But I just, I was so proud to have a world that, like, I could really get lost in. Because, when I was younger, video games really weren't doing it for me, in that respect at the time.
Right.
They weren't there yet. And Myst really was able to get that sort of exploration thing. And that's why it's always going to have a special place in my heart. Yeah.
Well, is it my turn?
I believe
it is.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Alrighty. Yeah. I guess I'm one of the few old timers that was around when all of these games originally came out. And I remember seeing Myst not as this bolt out of the blue, but as an evolution. Because I was already quite familiar with the earlier Cyan titles. At about the time that the Manhole and Cosmic Cosmo and Spelunks came out, our son was young and was just about the age, 5, 6, or 7 years old to really get into things like that. And so he and I would sit down and play the Manhole and Osmo and just had a really good time. And he learned how to use a computer and a mouse, etc. And this was back when those particular titles shipped on a stack of floppies, and I would load them into our Macintosh SE, the little black and white Mac in a box, the original configuration with a 9-inch black and white screen, etc. And he really enjoyed those. And he's 27 now and can still remember details from the games, because we played them so much and enjoyed them. So I kept up with Cyan's products. I think it was Mac I think it was Mac World. I subscribed to Mac Addict later on, but that was somewhat after the fact. But I think it was Mac World who would always post articles about what was coming up. And I think that's where I found out about the manhole. And so once I was pretty much convinced that Cyan did very cool things, I kept an eye on the magazine for any titles they would have coming up. And that's how we found out about Spelunks and the manhole. No, Spelunks and Osmo. So we were already quite familiar with those when Myst first came out. And we had seen some hints of the upcoming game in the magazines and things like that. So that when I first played Myst, I think one of the first things that struck me was instead of just the black and white environments with a spot of color or things like that, it was suddenly this beautiful, full-color rendered world. And while it had a lot of the same theories of interaction, theories of gameplay, as a manhole and Spelunks and Osmo, it was a little bit different because it wasn't just clicking things to see what happened when you click something. You knew that if you clicked something, it was for a reason, but the reason wasn't immediately obvious right away. And it was very intriguing to try to figure out the interconnections between the various parts of Myst Island before I even got out into the ages. So I thoroughly enjoyed Myst. I was already a Cyan fan, as mentioned, so Myst was it's like the latest and greatest. And I think, like a lot of us, I had to upgrade my computer to even be able to play it.
Story of my life.
That's when I bought my first color Mac. And in fact, I'm trying to think here. I bought an external CD-ROM drive there for a while because my Mac Performa 405.
I love those old titles. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just about.
If you can even remember those, it was like a little pizza box, and the monitor would sit on top of it separately. But it didn't have an optical drive, so you had to buy an external CD-ROM drive to do it. And
amazing how history repeats itself in that regard.
Well, yes, it does. And it was
that's
just
what they do today. Yeah.
And it was a single-speed CD-ROM drive. I don't know what they're up to now, even. And so that was my introduction to Myst. But when Riven came out, that single-speed drive and the Performa 405 just weren't quite up to Riven, and it would crash periodically and freeze and do things like that. So back around 1995, I bought one of the Macintosh clones that were popular at the time, briefly. In fact, I'm looking at it as I speak here. It's sitting on my side desk, and it still works. It's circa 1995, Power Computing, Power Center Pro 210, I think it was called. And it had a built-in optical drive, and it had the horsepower to play Uru. To play Riven.
I was going to say, that's a bit of a
yeah, I know,
jump.
kind of jumping
a
ahead.
really impressive machine.
Time travel.
It would not have handled Uru.
I thought I had nodded off for a second.
Yeah,
there.
I know.
I missed part of the story.
What did I miss here? But only to say that that's what I played Riven on, and I was thoroughly impressed by Riven. It was like all the things that you wanted to see in Myst suddenly brought together, because it was like...
oh, yeah.
I won't say that it was like comparing Star Trek the TV series to Star Trek the first movie and the contrast like that, but just the realism of the pre-rendered worlds in Riven were superb. And it was just a treat to wander through those worlds. It was also a very challenging experience, but I remember commenting to myself or observing to myself that all the puzzles, such as they were so much better integrated into the world. And I think that's been one of the big comments about Riven, is that it was such a tight package. But okay, so much for Riven.
Yeah, so much for Riven. Yeah,
so much for Riven, yeah.
Nobody played that game.
Nobody cares about Riven.
We moved on, yeah. When I played Exile, loved it. And I started Revelation, could never quite get past parts of it, and have yet to get past parts of it. But then when Uru came out, again, I could kind of see it coming because I stayed up with the forums by that time and the magazine articles and things like that. And it was, I don't know if any of you guys remember, but the anticipation built even before the game released. Because through Cyan's website, there were various little, dropped hints. And I'm trying to remember the name of oh gosh, what was it? I've forgotten now.
The pre-after quest?
Yeah, because there was this whole backstory that occurred online even before the game came out, and these mysterious little photos taken, like who knows where, and it all kind of led up to the story that you would be invited via an email from Jeff Zandy to come to the cavern, and well, I take that back. That was after you bought the boxed version of Uru. To get the online version, you had to, I don't remember if we had to like request permission or what, but I remember getting that email, and I was really flabbergasted because all of a sudden I could take part in Uru along with others, and the whole concept was so amazing. And I remember the first time I linked into the cavern and saw another explorer, and I think it was somebody from Germany, and as I recall. I'm kind of the shy type. I thought, oh gosh, there's another explorer. I didn't actually, try to converse or visit or anything. I took off another direction. But I think that's one of the things that has been observed in the past is that the cavern can be kind of like a social gathering place for antisocial people. Or not antisocial so much as, socially challenged.
Wow.
That's a little nicer.
Semantics.
And and so Uru was just, it was thoroughly amazing. And I know that we're asking for, for what do you remember the most about some of these experiences. In Uru, I'm going to have to mention several things, actually. When you would get onto the forum and see an announcement on like the DRC site, for example, that they had just cleared access to another part of the cavern, you'd suddenly jump into the game, get back in there to see this new content, because there was this great anticipation for new content. And you'd find that the cavern was very laggy because a lot of other people were going there to see that that new content as well. And so you'd go where the crowd was, you'd find the place where there was like a pile of rocks was suddenly cleared off, and there were stairs there behind where the rocks were. And you'd climb the stairs for the first time, and people are discovering this together and key chatting about it, and that was really what it was all about. So that was really fun. And anytime that you would log into Uru and would watch it download an update, you knew that cool things were afoot and that you were about to see something neat and new. But I think that one of the most impactful experiences I had in Uru was the night that Wheelie Enberg died. And
oh boy,
that was a kind of a heavy experience. I wasn't in the cavern proper, but I was off in one of the hoods, and was getting the news relayed from one of the okay, what did they call themselves? Anyway, the story was coming to us in bits and pieces, and it really was a palpably tense experience. Because everything was happening live, and so we were getting these reports kind of secondhand. It's kind of like a news report coming in.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us who weren't around in Cavern during that time, who exactly was Wheelie Ender?
Right, she was she was the daughter of a member of the DRC, Dr. Engberg. She was an in-game character that was back when the DRC still made regular appearances in the game, in the cavern. And so it was all very personal. See, you would read in their forums and suddenly you'd go to the cavern and there they are. But she was an in-game character that I guess was actually somebody at Cyan actually performing this live. And when the word got around that she had and a friend of hers had been exploring in a certain part of the cavern, had found a crack in like the pub wall, I think it was, and had gotten in there to explore, and there was a sudden cave-in. This just went around the community like an electric shot, because as real as these characters can be to you through Uru, this was somebody that we knew. We'd all explored with her and chatted with her over our keys and stood face to face in the cavern and things like that. And suddenly she was in a bad way, and we were getting this news, secondhand. And so we all expected the story to resolve, I think, at least I did. But when she was killed, that was a heavy thing. And I can remember the key chats were just alive with, no, oh, this is terrible. How can this happen? Things like this. How's her father going to take this? It was all so real. And so that, I think, was the most impactful experience I had in Uru. I guess one of the most poignant was I was in the cavern the night that the original experience closed, and they shut the server off. And I've still got a screen capture of the error message that popped up when the servers went down. One of the coolest experiences I had was spending a weekend in Spokane for Mysterium 2006. And just to be able to hang around their headquarters and to meet the, all the folks there was really very cool. And I think especially to talk to Rand, because by this time we had interviewed him, I think, 2 or 3 times in the Cavern Today. Mm-hmm. And so I went up, and there was a line of folks, and I finally got up to him and said, "Hello, I'm Moag." And he said, "Moag," and gave me a bear hug and slapped me on the back, because he remembered me from the interviews. And
here is Atris giving you a bear hug.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And that whole weekend was just kind of surreal, to tell you the truth. And coupled with the cool part of meeting all the folks at Cyan was to walk up to somebody in a group at like the hotel, for example, and to see strangers until you'd see their name tag, and you realize, oh, that's so-and-so. I've explored with them. I solved, the garden ages with them, and here they are. And it's like a room full of strangers until you see the name tag. Mm-hmm. And so that was very cool.
I remember seeing your photo album that you posted from that. There were some explorers that took very special care to dress exactly like their avatars, weren't they?
Yes.
I know. I would have if I had ever
the
gone.
one I'm thinking of that was just a spitting image of his Avi. Oh gosh, it's been so long I've forgotten now. But it was also very cool to be standing talking to somebody and have somebody tap me on the back and say, "Aren't you Moag? I've heard you in the podcast." And so that was very cool. Because then we realized that there were enough folks that actually listened to it that we had a following. And it's nice when you put something like this out to realize or to find out that somebody actually listens to it. But that was also the first time that several of us from the Cavern Today actually met firsthand for the first time. And it was pretty much the original team. And the majority of us got together and met. And I've got a group picture on my, my Flickr gallery. A couple pictures that somebody took of us all posing together with Rand right in the middle. And Dalken's in those pictures, Tyon's in those pictures, several others who we remember fondly, yeah. That was a truly special weekend. And that was also the weekend that they announced the GameTap connection.
Oh, very cool.
Right, and that it was going to be happening. And so there were 2 or 3 folks there from GameTap. And so they all, they all addressed us as to what the arrangement entailed and what we could expect with GameTap handling Uru and things like that. And spirits were really high. And, of course, as we know now, things didn't turn out quite as planned. But, of course, we realized, too, that the ending has not yet been written. So,
oh, yes. Which sort of leads us perfectly into our next discussion point.
Go right ahead. I could keep going, but we shouldn't, yeah.
We've reminisced about the past. Now it's time for us to look at the present.
Yes.
Which is that Cyan does seem like they might be up to something. The ending may not have been written indeed.
And it's just like old times.
Oh,
you see things change on their website and realize, oh boy,
oh yes,
like
they're
Holmes
being
would say
just
to Watson,
as vague too.
Well, Holmes would say to Watson, the game is afoot, and here's where we are again.
The game is afoot.
Yeah.
They're being just as vague. They've rebranded from Cyan Worlds to just Cyan, like they used to be.
Cyan Incorporated. Actually.
Cyan Incorporated.
Getting back to
the logo is much simpler again now. It's just
more like the original, or like the
it's pretty much the original Cyan logo with a cyan dot in the middle of the in the gap of the C now.
So they have a whole new design to their website, but the most interesting thing is that on their Facebook page, they've been dropping a few very vague hints about an upcoming project. A couple images, one in particular that looks like it could be a redone version of Channelwood, although maybe it's not related to Myst, but it certainly does look like Channelwood.
It looks a lot like Channelwood.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
so
admit it. It's
our
Channelwood.
Thoughts about...
Well, I mean, we've got 3 quotes. The first of which is Atreus, where he's saying, I have tried to speculate where it might have landed, though I must admit, however, such kind of conjecture is futile. I'm sure everyone has that memorized.
I wonder what that's from.
The second one...
I did it once for the podcast.
Hey!
Oh, yes.
The second one, it's a quote of Robert Gamble from Beauties of the Universe, which was published in 1732, which is unbounded in its kin, free from prison free, will clearly view what here we darkly see, those planetary worlds and thousands more, now veiled from human sight, it shall explore. It seems to be a reference to other worlds, specifically the idea of after death that the soul is freed from its body and can explore the universe and its infiniteness.
Huh.
Very good.
And the final being part of a quote from The Wizard of Oz, with Glinda the Good Witch telling Dorothy how she can return home with just a click of her heels.
It seems to be alluding to quickness of travel, similar to linking, where you just go.
Yes.
And you're there.
This definitely looks to be... Well, it reminds me of this past summer, there was an interview in the DMR with Rand Miller, and Rand Miller was asked about projects that they had, and he did say something about a project they had been working on. I think he said that it was something new, but that it would hopefully echo back to the same feeling they provided when people first landed on Myst Island. And I would say, given what they have, given what they've shown us right now, it definitely has given me that feeling that, maybe it's just that everything's super cryptic and I'm just trying to turn it into an AGR.
ARG.
ARG, that's the word.
Yep.
Yeah, and my comment on this is stirring up feelings I haven't felt for a long time. From when we were seeing the cryptic hints on the Cyan website and knew that something was going on, something very good, and it was coming our way. And we were just so antsy to find out what was actually happening, And we knew that we wouldn't until Cyan was good and ready. And we're there again, and that's very cool. It's intriguing.
Having there be an aspect of mystery at all is good.
Yeah.
Frankly, because just nothing is the worst, almost. No news is never good news. I do want to make one point, though. Now, a couple of these things that have been posted to the wall haven't been posted by the Cyan page itself, but by somebody else. But the general consensus seems to be that these are legit.
Yeah.
So,
and each one is accompanied by a sort of a surreal image. The first one, which is the quote from Atreus, actually looks... To me, it looks like some type of... Well, because there's a sidebar on that image. With,
yes, I couldn't figure out what that one was either. Yeah.
But it looks like a smashed monitor, actually. Like a smashed LCD. How you get all those weird colors.
Yeah. But it looks like in the background there might be waves or mountains or something. Yeah.
Or maybe like
behind
like
that yeah. But it definitely seems like somebody's intentionally trying to obscure what's behind there.
The second one from Robert Gamble, thank you. It seems like a sort of a tendril. Maybe it has kind of a deep sea look to it.
I actually
bioluminescent
thought
creatures.
that was an image of a supergiant having its plasma being siphoned off by a dwarf star, but I'm not sure if that's actually what it is.
I thought it looked astronomical too. Yeah.
Then again, there's a lot of overlap in those visuals between deep sea and astronomical.
Oh yeah. Wouldn't James Cameron want to point that out?
And for my money, the third one, which is actually an Imgur link instead of being posted directly to Facebook, for whatever it might be worth, it actually looks like a microscopic picture, the kind that are colored with radiography.
That definitely seems to be what it is.
Yeah.
But what of?
For the life of me, I couldn't identify it. But it has that kind of grainy look to it, where it could be microscopic.
Yeah.
which could bode for interesting things.
Oh, yeah.
If all is space and time, why not smaller or bigger?
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that other image, the more I look at that, I mean, there's no two ways around it. That is obviously Channelwood, or at least a copy of Channelwood. But it's not the real Myst version, and it's not the Myst version.
But those are definitely artificial shadows. Looking at it now, just there's no way that's a real picture. It's damn pretty, but there's no way that's real.
Yes, it is.
I mean, maybe it's just a concept drawing. Maybe it's a maybe if they're working on a project that has to do with like alternate universes and travel, maybe they'd overlap with the Myst universe, but without it actually being a Myst game.
It's possible.
Like as a reference, without it being who knows? I have no idea, but it'd be interesting.
Yes, keeping in mind that they've mentioned on their website that they've dropped the hint that they might be using some other game engines.
Oh yeah, didn't they say they were looking at
Unreal?
Yeah, Unreal.
Yeah. And which is...
I don't think much of Unreal, really.
Well, just the fact that they're using contemporary game engines to build new material is kind of intriguing.
Yeah, that they're branching out at all.
Right, and like they finally...
No longer confined to plasma.
Right, they finally set it aside, because how old is it now? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Even Myst 5, the updates they did to the engine for Myst 5 can make some of that pretty, Myst 5, I replayed it recently, and it looks pretty good, better than it does in the Uru engine.
Yeah.
Even the same content, but it's, it's still old.
I think my biggest problem with the Unreal Engine is it doesn't do hard edges very well at all. Everything has to be sort of gradiented into it.
Anti-aliased or whatever, yeah.
No, it's like just hard edges on the models, not the textures at all, but the models themselves. Look like they've been sculpted with someone's fingertip instead of a knife. Like they have that kind of bevel to them.
Yeah, I actually know what you mean. I can picture it in my head what you're talking about, yeah. Anyway, why don't we move on to some other, not so much news, but just discussion point. As Dalken will have pointed out in the news section, there is some new content that has been shared, not necessarily in the main shard, in notably the Gen shard. Now, everybody here has had a chance to look at that content, right?
I did some time ago, yeah.
I was actually,
I believe...
I was in Gen just before the call was made.
Oh, goody.
Sweet.
I believe the new content that's released in Genshard is Vothtal Gallery, which is a Dunny location.
Yes.
An apartment, which is also Dunny location. The name escapes me, I'm sorry.
Finner House.
And also, help me, Trebivdil,
yes,
which is a Garden Age. And they all look very lovely, and they all fit in the universe of Uru very well. So, do you have gripes?
I have my gripe about one of them.
Well, this is the place to talk about them.
I would say Trebevdil, which is the Garden Age. It's very square.
Trebevdil,
so.
What you need to know about Trebevdil, though, is that it was literally made over a weekend.
Yes.
It is the winner of a weekend age building contest. And considering the quality of that age that came out of 2 days of work, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I've tried to do mapping in 3D before. It's not easy at all. So to be able to knock something like this out in a weekend is very impressive to me. But as ages go, it's very square. It's very bright.
The squares are quick.
It's very jarring. I would say it's
sure.
Also, it's kind of just.
It's stark.
These big squares of sand don't really look like they would actually be holding up under their own mass. Like,
hey,
if
man,
they were like
it's another age.
If they were like sandstone,
you don't know that it's actually sand.
If they were shaped a little more, like they look like they were falling apart slightly, but they're all very uniform and very neatly beveled around the corners.
Actually, I believe they are supposed to be sandstone. Actually,
are they?
I remember reading. I think they are actually supposed to be blocks of sandstone.
In which case, it would be a texturing issue then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, but I still think that the interesting thing about that age is that, it is a Garden Age. It works out very well. It's basically like a little mini museum. It looks nice. The only gripe I have about it is that I think that the signage coming in looks a little strange. It's a little like the drop shadow specifically against the sandstone behind it. I'm not
the whole
really
area
here to judge.
is very, very bright. There's not a whole lot of shadow in it.
I'm not here to judge, though. It's a great looking age. I think it goes great in the neighborhoods like they have it set up in Genshard. It's really quite lovely. Now, didn't you? I remember you did a narration for that when it first came out. Yeah.
Yes, Tribivtal came out. I don't remember exactly when, but it's back when Cavern Today was still pretty regularly active. And the developer of that contacted me, I think through a PM through the TCT forum, or perhaps through the Uru forum. And he asked if I'd be interested in recording a promotion for it. And he gave me the text and things like that, and we put music behind it. And so, yeah. So we actually promoted Tribivtal in TCT, but goodness knows...
I feel dirty now.
But goodness knows how long ago that was. It's been some time.
Oh, that's on YouTube.
I feel dirty because we promoted it and I just went and trashed it.
No. We're not trashing. We're just giving opinion. I still think, but you can look that up. That's on YouTube. Somebody put that together. Your voice over the images of Tribivtal.
Oh, is that right? Okay, well, good.
Listeners, go look that up.
That's good to know that's out there.
I'm not kidding. Yeah.
But it should be noted, too, that none of us had seen it at the time that we did the promotion.
Yeah.
Then you should be the one feeling dirty.
And I enjoyed it, actually. I should say that I did enjoy visiting there.
No, I do love this, like, just sit on the benches and look out because it's nice. But, we've talked about this. Anyway, I do want to give props to the one that's the apartment. I'm so sorry.
Fenir's house.
I forgot the name.
Fenir House was developed by Tweak.
Is it?
Yes.
Fenir?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not Fenir?
It might be Fenir. It's probably Fenir.
Yeah.
Fenir. Tweak, however you want us to pronounce it. But the one thing I notice about that, especially, is that you walk right in there, and the music that is in the background is, I swear to God, somebody must have gotten in touch with Tim Larkin and said, hey, what sound fonts are you using? Because they have the sound perfect. Like, it sounds like Tim Larkin wrote that.
Yeah, I actually didn't notice the music, which, coming from me, means a lot, because it wasn't jarring. Because I went straight from my Relto to Fenir House. So for there to be no noticeable transition means that it felt like nothing had changed.
Right.
And that's a very high compliment for
Yes.
Yeah. To get that level of quality perfect where it feels so like natural to the world.
Yeah, I would not have been surprised if that had been shipped with the game. I have two complaints with that age. The texture on the DRC journal doesn't wrap properly, and the skybox for the cavern repeats.
Yeah,
that's it. The age itself is beautiful.
Oh yes, I would like to point out that the version of Fenir House that we have in Genshard is different than the version of Fenir House that is in Deep Island, or at least the last time I saw it in Deep Island. Yes.
Interesting.
Is it newer or is it older?
It's newer, from what I can tell.
Oh,
because the one that was in Fenir House, when I first linked in there, you walk up if you can walk up the stairs, there's a pedestal there. There's supposed to be a book on that pedestal. I don't know if it's still there or not. I can't remember because it's been a while. But when I was there in Deep Island, the book was open and the linking panel was covered in dust, and there was a handprint on it.
Oh,
and there was a specific reference to that having that age that goes to having been seeded during the fall of Denis. And so that was a very powerful thing to see. Just this testament to Veilvis and Agaris destroying everything that had been. Actually, I think that age. I think the age that linking book goes to actually had a name. I think it's called Lens, but I would have to
something along those lines.
He Tweak talked about it in his blog, and it's been ages, no pun intended, since I've read that.
If I remember correctly from my little tour. The book is there on the pedestal. You can't interact with it as it is now, though. It's not an interaction point, so you don't get that close up where you can see the handprint. But you do get the reference to it in the journal. So you can still go up and look and see. Yeah, this is how this happened.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's very cool. It's just, I mean, that level of attention to detail is great. I mean, I think that's what makes this community great, and I think that's what makes the folks over at GAO so cool, is the fact that they're willing to geek out over this kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. It's those kinds of little bits of storytelling in the environment that you don't. It's a classic example of show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
If you let the audience piece the story together for themselves, it's that much more powerful than if you just tell it to them.
The subtleties mean so much.
Speaking of show, don't tell, there's Fenrir House had a journal with it that gave a little bit of the backstory, but a Vothol gallery is just you just go right in and you just look. It's like a small room, like an antechamber.
Yeah.
The idea with the Vothol gallery is that it belongs to the Guild of Writers, right? If I'm seeing the
iconography, right?
The iconography and the color palette correctly.
It's, for those of you who haven't looked around and seen it, it's like a circular room with pillars in the shape of pen nibs, like the nibs of a fountain pen, pointed down, and the entire room is colored red, which I'm assuming is the color of the Guild of Writers. Someone could check me on
if
that?
I remember correctly,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Red
I know
black,
their
I think is
their pub is definitely red, yeah.
Yeah. There's actually some pretty good climbing in there if you explore a bit. There's,
if you're careful, you can actually get up to the roof.
That's what I was trying to do. I don't think I ever got up that high, but I sure had a good time trying.
I did not realize that there was that much of that to explore. I'm going to have to try that again.
I might have to go back and look, yeah.
Go back.
But I think, going back to the point of story in the environment, there's a lot of mystery to that room because of all of the images of various people hanging in like stained glass.
Yes.
Who are these people? Why are they important? Are they
kind of like in the library.
Yeah. Are they important?
Or the museum.
Are they just there to be attractive? Are they people of some importance? Did they have some history?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just want to explain to our listeners that we've mentioned Deep Island Shard versus Gen Shard. And it's important to understand the difference that, because as far as I can tell, there is a bit of confusion about that amongst the community. So let me explain. Basically, the difference is that Gen Shard is, I mean, they're both run by the Guild of Writers. But the difference is that Gen Shard is based on the current Myst Online Ur Live architecture, whereas the Deep Island Shard is based on the Complete Chronicles / Demal architecture. The reason for that is that a lot of the fan ages that were made over the years were obviously made on Complete Chronicles engine because they didn't have Myst Online Ur Live yet. That's why they were making the ages. They were trying to keep busy.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but the point is, so a lot of that content, in order to host it onto any sort of live server, needs to be in that engine, and so that's where the Deep Island Shard comes in. Now, converting that content to work with the Ur Live architecture, the current Myst Online Ur Live architecture, is actually a very difficult process. Which is why there's comparatively few ages released in the Gen Shard than there are in the Deep Island Shard, which pretty much has anything that's ever been made by somebody, and at sort of varying degrees of quality. Whereas with Gen Shard, they also do a little bit of quality control. Does this work? Does this make sense in the universe of Myst Online and Dunny? And speaking of that, as our last discussion point, I thought I'd come up with an interesting discussion topic for people. Now, Deep Island Shard does actually let you do this to an extent. But here's the question, and the question is really based on this, which is that ever since Myst 5 came out, I'm sure a lot of explorers played the game and thought in their heads, man, it'd be really cool if I got to explore this in, Ur Live. How cool would this have been, especially the Great Shaft, considering we sort of saw a glimpse of it. And we eventually did get to see that section of Kavir later on. Spoilers, not really.
Not after how long this thing's been out. No.
I suppose not, yeah.
It's like spoiling Citizen Kane. There's no point.
But the interesting thing is, despite the fact that, to our knowledge, a lot of that content had originally been developed for Uru.
Exactly.
The thing is, the way they are ultimately done depends on sort of these, game mechanics that are not compatible with Uru, game mechanics that they made up specifically for Myst 5.
The tablets, etc.
Like the tablets, and specifically things that thematically work with Myst 5, like ages such as Nolabin, which were sort of changed a bit to give a little bit of backstory about Escher, that kind of thing. So the question that I have that I wanted to sort of discuss as a group and give our own opinions on is, to what extent is the content that's in Myst 5, like, to what extent would that actually be appropriate in the universe of Uru? In the IC world of Uru, and just gameplay wise in the world of Uru, what would actually work and what maybe wouldn't work?
Well, I think right off the bat, you could say that everybody would love to see more of Descent. The Great Shaft is one of those locations in Denis that is just jaw-dropping. Reading in the Book of Tiana how it took the 3 largest digging machines to create that shaft.
And not only did it take the 3 biggest digging machines, but they had never been seen together on the same project before.
Yes,
definitely.
This was a huge deal.
They just dug
this was the biggest moment in the history of the Guild of Miners.
Half a mile straight up through the ground. That is absolutely amazing. And then the other, of course, being Nolabin. There's a direct reference to Nolabin in the Baron's office, in Denis. It's on a little notepad. I'm guessing Douglas Sharper. It was a note from Watson to Douglas Sharper that says, "The hut on Nolabin is not empty. My Dunny is not great, but we need to talk about this." And that's, of course, that's a reference to Escher. Years before we knew who that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still suspect that a great deal of what we saw in Myst 5 was originally intended for Uru, but the way that things planned out, it took a different route. Also, some of you could have done this, I don't recall, but if some time back there was a certain hack available that would let you play the Myst 5 Ages from Uru. And it was really a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. You could also, you could invoke fly mode and kind of go behind the scenes and see, the aerial things that we all did in fly mode in End of Ages. And it was quite intriguing, actually, and it worked very well.
Yeah, that was Drizzle, I believe, and
Yes,
actually,
it was.
Fun fact: Deep Island Shard makes that possible using Drizzle if you have a copy of Myst 5 to actually go on live to one of the Myst 5 Ages, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's actually what made me ask the question, because I don't want to call it a rush job, not to offend anybody, but part of the reason I'm asking this question is because it becomes evident that maybe some of these ages are better off in Myst 5 than they actually would be in
Personally, I wouldn't miss them. I would not miss the Myst 5 Ages, with the exception of Earth, which, the Cavern, the Great Shaft, all of that.
Sure.
Kavir. That I would love, because I want to be in every area of the cavern that I can.
Yes.
I hate being blocked off. Especially when I know that we've had this mapped out, we've been to it. I want to be able to go to it again. And speaking of wanting to go to it again, the other area from Myst 5 that I really want to see active is Myst. Because you can only get it in the bad end of Myst 5.
Yes.
And you see it's all run down, but you can go there, you can see the Channelwood tree, the grave of Tiana, the library is a complete mess.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my biggest thing with Uru, is that I'm very disappointed that we never breach the door in the library. Because when you get to Myst in Uru, it's completely sealed off. You can't get to the elevator to the tower, you can't rotate the tower, and the door is sealed. You can't get to the rest of the island.
Yeah.
I want to breach that door.
Yes.
I want to get to the rest of the island. Even if I can't go to the surrounding ages, I just want to get to the island. It's sort of a circular coming home kind of thing that I feel we're really missing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons
so
why
I think you're about to say,
that.
are you about to say what I think you're about to say? Yes, you are.
Am I?
Go say it. Say it. I'll laugh if it's what I think you're about to say.
I was just going to say that one of the reasons why I think that door is there is because I remember reading something that Rawa had said years ago about how the Myst Island that we see in Myst is not representative of the actual Myst Island that exists.
And I fully agree with
canon. That an example is that the place of protection to the Selenintic age was designed as a rocket, but that in actuality that rocket was just there to show some sort of otherworldly technology that we don't really have an analog to. So being as the difference between Myst and Uru is that the Myst is a game that's been developed by Cyan that per contract from the DRC, and the Uru events are treated as factual, then our actually going to the Myst Island brings up a problem. If we go out of the library, we're going to see the actual island as it actually is. And it's not going to look like the place that we remember.
Yeah.
But that's what's so exciting, being able to... It's like seeing a photograph from somewhere from your childhood and then going there yourself when you're old enough to remember it, and it looks so different, but it's also kind of familiar at the same time. That I would love to go to a Myst Island that was built to be an actual Myst Island.
Oh yeah, because to think that island
extremely excited to see that.
Well, to think that island supported a family for who knows how many years, so they would have been, like farming, and of course they could link out for some of their supplies, but they need the living quarters to support a family of 4, and
kind of like Rhyme.
I have a counter quote for you, Chris. This is exactly what I thought you were going to say. First of all, I do want to point out that you are coming at that from an IC perspective.
Of course.
Rawa actually later retracted that and clarified from an OOC perspective that truthfully, if we ever see Myst Island in Uru, he said it's definitely going to be the one that you're familiar with, but no guarantees. The other thing he also said, he also suggested that the elevator going up to the observation tower is not necessarily a one-way.
Oh, yeah,
now, I can't. Don't quote me on that, but I recall him saying that.
I recall that being the explanation as well. That would go down as well to like a subterranean level. That would be like living quarters, kitchen, dining room, stuff like that.
Very interesting.
And that would make a whole hell of a lot of sense, seeing that Atris was at least half Denis, and they were basically living as Denis.
Now, that's the interesting thing. That's why I would be okay with it just being a Myst 5. Here's one thing. Here's my caveat, though. I do think that if they were to ever have Myst Island in Ur, then it shouldn't be exactly it is in Myst 5. On the one hand, I do think it's important to show it in its rundown state. It became rundown because Atris's family sort of abandoned it because it brought back painful memories of Cirrus and Achenar. Understandable. So it's important to show it run down. But the problem is that in Myst 5, it's intended to be a bad ending, and it feels like a bad ending.
Yeah.
It's not only run down, it's dead. There's no
stormy,
greenery, no animals, it's stormy.
Yeah.
It is stormy, it is dark, the music is depressing as heck.
It's really, you really feel like you've messed up if you get that ending.
Yeah.
So I would take it as it is, and I would make a few minor changes to it. The first minor change I make is remove the rain. That immediately changes the tone of the island, like, a lot, just alone.
Yeah.
My second thing that I would do is change the music to the music that is currently in the library, just because it's a little bit more mysterious and a little bit less depressing. And those two things together, I think, would make it a little bit more appropriate
restore
for
the
Uru.
greenery, because even in the absence of someone there, the greenery, the like trees and grass and stuff, they'd probably be fine.
Well, I like the fact that the grass was overgrown.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
all the trees were like dead.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's just that alone would make me okay with it. I do think that if they could give a little bit more greenery, that'd be cool. But it would mean retexturing. The laziest way to do it would be to I have one other point about that. I mostly agree with everything that everybody else has said so far as far as what content is appropriate. Great Shaft, etc., Cavern, etc. The one thing that I do want to point out is Tagira. Now, I have a bit of a different perspective on Tagira, because you go to Tagira and it feels a little bit more like a Myst age. You don't go in there and say, oh, this is a place I would love to be with friends. It just doesn't have that vibe to it for some reason.
I really enjoyed Tagira.
But it feels absolutely like
frozen prison age, right?
Yes,
right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it feels absolutely like an age that you're supposed to be in alone. It just feels like that for some reason.
Yeah.
And my suggestion for why that might be is because I think they actually reversed engineered Tagira out of what was originally supposed to be Beyond Gira. If you guys remember the second section of the rumored second section of Eder Gira 2. And I can support this theory by saying if you ever go into Google and you type in Beyond Gira, Eder Gira 2, you'll get a piece of concept art which has the exact trees that are in Tagira.
Oh, very interesting.
Except not covered in snow. So those two things, and also the similarity in the name, just, that by itself. So that leads me to believe that they had, or at least the foundations of an age, and they sort of reversed engineered it, made it a snowy age, and gave it a different backstory. I'm assuming that Beyond Gira would have been something that'd be more appropriate as, something to visit with other people, but Tagira, I'm not getting that sense really.
I think
just for some reason.
I think your theory has actually been confirmed, but I can't remember where I heard that. The reason I say this is because I've heard this before about Eder Gira 2. I think on the old DRC page there was actually an Eder Gira 3 listed as well, but that they had plans on having multiple locations within these ages that you could visit over time. And towards the end of Eder Gira, you look out across the waterfall, you see this village in the distance, and you think, oh wow, I want to go there. Yeah. And my guess is that was probably an idea for where they were going to end up progressing. If Teledon is an absolutely huge age. What we have is huge, and you go to the Baron's office and you see the map of it, and there are several sections, and people have actually worked out where on this map we actually are. And I think there's a couple little splotches that are kind of green tinted, and there's one that's red. If that sounds really crazy unless you know what I'm talking about, but
there's a thing here, and another thing here.
There's a thing over there, and you go to the place. But they had plans on going to more than multiple regions of these ages. I mean, that's obviously indicated by Douglas Sharper's Adventures with Shroomy.
Yeah, these ages aren't single biome worlds. There's a lot of different regions in them.
Oh yeah,
Especially I think Pod Ages is a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And that's another one. Todelmare. I don't need to have that whole age, but that pod age would definitely work in that collection, wouldn't it? Yeah, because there's a pod at the end. Spoiler alert for those who haven't played this fight. But anyway, I do have to agree with you. I think that's possibly one of the most heartbreaking things about Uru getting canceled when it did, because I distinctly remember the first time I stepped into Eder Gira, looking out and seeing those villages in the distance and saying, oh man, I wish I could go there.
I want to go there.
Like that. I have that memory, and to know that they were considering doing that and now they didn't get a chance, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, I have an idea. Here, I actually, I was in Garrison earlier, and I was thinking about Garrison 2 and Garrison 3, which were supposed, I think Garrison 2 was supposed to be the wall, and then Garrison 3 was supposed to be everywhere else, and there was a note on the DRC site that said, read the age evaluation journal, and you'll see why we aren't going to do this. It was something about the Garrison wildlife being absolutely horrific and angry. Why don't we all just go to Garrison, shove Dalken into one of the giant maintainer suits, and throw it off the thing, and let him try and tame the beast, and we'll just go from there.
On a more serious note, what's interesting about that is apparently all those little things are IC code for actual reasons why they had trouble with the ages. And I've never been able to decode what all those things means. And that's one of the things that I wonder, like, what is that supposed to mean, the wildlife? Like, what was that? What is that code for?
Yeah.
Bugs. Giant bugs.
Or maybe
that makes too much sense.
They just couldn't get the wildlife how they wanted it. Like,
Yeah.
Or maybe maybe they were intending to have like animals that you would interact with, or maybe even like the crabs in
The quabs, yeah.
yeah, the quabs, yeah.
In
Like that you'd run around.
Yeah.
In Auto.
I don't know if you ever noticed, but what pod age was it that was the jungle, basically?
Negulon.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
If you would play that in, and spoiler alert, fly mode, you could actually walk out through the pod and could freely explore that environment. So it's like they had intended originally for you to be able to explore and to go around and find the animals and things like that.
Well, back in the day, there was an expedition outside of the pod. I can't remember who it was, but it was...
Wasn't it Sharper?
It was Sharper and
one of the explorers.
Yeah, one of the explorers. I can't remember his name, but that's when they found the dead Irwin, I think it was, and they linked back because they realized the Barrow were doing things.
Right.
Oh, wait. Did that actually happen?
Yeah.
Like in the game?
Yeah.
Like, so they had somebody taken out. Oh, that's cool. That's neat.
Yeah, it is.
That means they actually went ahead and did all the texturing, and that's cool. That's really neat.
Yeah, but with fly mode, you could actually could walk around the outside of the pod, could see the outside of the pod. It was visible from inside and outside.
Yeah, I got to try that again then.
Yeah. Oh, it's very cool.
I got to figure out how to do fly mode in Myst 5 period, so I can... I never knew this was a thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that just about wraps us up.
Just about.
Yeah.
So for TCT Talk, this has been Wing.
I still can't think of something clever.
And Moag.
And Esto.
Shora Gabatori.
And me, Maris. Take care, everyone. Happy anniversary.
That was Gardens of Bandam, a piece by TCT staffer Jeff Wise. If you'd like to hear more of Jeff's work, be sure to check out his page on SoundCloud, Lampman Studios. Next up is Morris, who will be reintroducing a segment our podcast has not featured in quite some time. Hope you enjoy it.
Shira, Morris again, here to reintroduce a segment we haven't featured in many years, the Mad Lib. For those unfamiliar, Mad Libs are a game in which some particular piece of writing has words removed from it at random. The players are provided with only the parts of speech of these words, completely out of context, which they fill in with words of their choosing. Then, the words they chose are filled into the blank spots in the original text, usually with amusingly dumb results. For our TCT take on the Mad Lib, we usually take something from the Myst series literature. The TCT Mad Lib was originally featured in our original series podcast 27, and made several appearances afterwards, including during TCT Topside, but it hasn't been featured for a few years. Since this podcast is all about paying tribute to the history of the Myst series, we thought it would be appropriate to pay tribute to our own TCT history as well by bringing back this lighthearted segment. Now, I chose the text, a particular speech from Uru, and posted the list of parts of speech on our TCT forums, where my teammates filled out the words. As of this recording, they still aren't aware what the source text was. They're going to be hearing it together for the first time, just like our audience, when they listen to this podcast. And now, it's time for the big reveal. This TCT Mad Lib source text was Yisha's final speech from Ages Beyond Myst, the one that begins with,
"An ending has been written. You've done all that has been asked. You've traveled the full circle. You have returned to the cleft through the fissure."
And so, here are the results of our little game. Enjoy!
An ending has been linked. You've done all that has been eaten. You've examined the full rhombus. You have returned to Las Vegas by TARDIS. You ran among the Canadians and saw the bow ties of previous journeys. You have returned, and the fedoras were returned. And now, 25 more of the hippos, the smelliest, have been returned to Romania. You don't need to quest out what that means, only that the toenail of Vishnu has set it in motion. Now the rhombus is complete, and the poppies have begun to grow again. The rib is now open, and so the protozoan of the journey must gush. Now the entrance is tied to the exit. Now you can bojangle where you wish. The paying of Romania awaits. The belated city links. Mega Man again. And I will be concerned with other teeth. The smelliest are becoming more fragrant. They will now also obliterate the pain, though perhaps not the way cookies had planned. You've learned about the sloth of Romanians. The great lickers of worlds were infected with sloth that became a syphilis. It grew quietly in association with the surface, but it grew until Romania could chortle no more. But those things have been massacred. You flagellated well, I think. Let us end this spatula with octopi before we start the next spatula. Walla Walla, Washington, the laminated place. Your cherry blossom now. It was the first cherry blossom I licked, a gift for my trench coats, and now much more. It reminds me of another whale, another quasar. I even put the shack in the place it belongs. But Walla Walla will change. It will be your cartridge, showing what you are. Only I could lick Walla Walla. It is beyond what the Romanians could accomplish. Keep it. And I've given you real estate that represents your journey. Juggle this to show others what pilot we've taken when pilots are taken. When you wear it, you tell all that you pilot with us, with Yisha, with the hippos. It will not always be hanging. And another gift is here, a link to Las Vegas, here in Nevada. You haven't been able to singe here, but now you can. This kumquat will take a special place in your mason jar. This place is not meant to be lambasted. Return here alone when you wish to giggle the spatula of things.
A big thank you to Dalken Starbyne for voicing that for me. For the Cavern Today, this is Morris, signing off.
We have come to the end of our Myst 20th Anniversary special, but of course, the ending has not yet been written for the Cavern Today. We will see you again soon for the upcoming Uru 10th Anniversary and more. A lot of effort goes into the production of each of these podcasts, so we'd like to take a moment to give credit to our TCT staffers who have worked hard to make this 20th Anniversary special a success. Thank you to Dalken Starbyne for the news, to Delanor for letting us share his music piece, Stream of Unconsciousness, to Morris, Moag, Wing, and Esto for TCT Talk, Jeff Wise for his music piece, Gardens of Bandam, and Morris for the Mad Lib. For the Cavern Today, this has been Moag, your host for this podcast, signing off. And of course, happy anniversary, Myst.